No one in the Sinclair mansion expected that a simple suggestion from the matriarch could upend the life of her only son, or shock the world of privilege he was born into. Victoria Sinclair, billionaire and queen of high society, sat behind her towering mahogany desk, her fingers lightly drumming on the polished surface. Her gaze was fixed, intense, as if she were looking right through her son and into his very heart. "Daniel," she said, her voice calm but firm, "I want you to marry a woman you would never imagine marrying." Daniel blinked, taken aback. The mansion was a palace of wealth, every surface gleaming, every corner immaculately curated, yet his mother's words hinted at a secret, a test, a twist he could not yet grasp. "Mother, what do you mean?" he asked, curiosity mixing with caution. Victoria leaned forward, a small, knowing smile appearing for the first time that morning. "Someone in this household has a strength, a heart, and a character that cannot be measured in wealth or social standing. I want you to see her, not as a servant, not as someone beneath our world, but as a woman who could redefine your life." Daniel frowned, struggling to reconcile the image of his mother, the powerful, exacting matriarch, with her words. "Are you serious? You want me to marry someone in the household staff?" Victoria's eyes softened, the hard edge of authority giving way to rare vulnerability. "Yes. I've watched her for months. She's intelligent, compassionate, and resilient. She has a depth that surpasses most people you meet in our world. I want you to meet her with an open heart, Daniel. Sometimes the greatest surprises come from the places we least expect." A silence settled over the room, heavy with tension and the unspoken possibilities that hung between them. Daniel's mind raced. Could he set aside societal expectations and his own prejudices? Could he truly see someone for their character and not their title, wealth, or pedigree? Victoria finally leaned back in her chair, her expression calm but expectant. "Think about it carefully. Observe her. Learn who she truly is. The woman I'm asking you to consider will challenge everything you think you know about love and family." Daniel left her office slowly, the words echoing in his mind. Challenge, love, family. He glanced around the sprawling mansion, its gleaming floors, priceless art, and vast gardens. Everything seemed perfect, controlled, predictable. And yet, for the first time, he felt a flicker of uncertainty. A thrilling, frightening uncertainty that whispered of life beyond the rules he had always followed. Somewhere in the mansion, in quiet humility, lived a woman whose presence had quietly captivated his mother, and whose life would soon captivate him in ways he could never imagine. Daniel didn't yet know it, but the suggestion Victoria had made would set in motion a series of events that would challenge every assumption about love, loyalty, and what it truly means to be rich. Emma moved quietly through the modest quarters tucked behind the Sinclair mansion, balancing a tray of breakfast in one hand and holding the tiny hand of one of her triplets in the other. The small apartment she rented was humble but warm, a home filled with the laughter, chatter, and occasional cries of her 3 young children. Despite the simplicity of the surroundings, everything had its place. A neatly folded stack of diapers, a small chalkboard for the triplets' learning, and a well-worn cookbook propped open on the counter. The morning sun streamed through the window, catching on the soft curls of the triplets' hair. Emma set the tray on the table, kneeling to serve each child with practiced care. "Here you go, my loves," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "Eat well, and then we have a busy morning ahead." As the triplets, 2 girls and a boy, all energetic and curious, began eating, Emma glanced at the small mirror on the wall. She had learned to move gracefully, juggling motherhood and her job in the mansion's staff. Every day was a test of endurance, patience, and creativity. She smiled faintly, recalling the countless times she had managed a crisis: spilled milk, a lost shoe, a mischievous toddler attempting to climb the counter. She did it all with dignity because for Emma, there was no room for despair, not when 3 small lives depended on her. Her thoughts drifted briefly to the mansion, to the polished floors and glittering chandeliers where she worked from dawn until dusk. Most of the staff saw her as quiet, efficient, unremarkable. But Emma carried a world of experience in her heart: love, resilience, and a quiet intelligence that no amount of wealth could measure. She was determined to give her children the future they deserved, even if it meant staying invisible in the house where luxury was taken for granted. "Mommy, look," one of the girls squealed, holding up a block tower she had built. Emma chuckled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm proud of you," she said, feeling the warmth of their tiny hands on hers. These small moments, though exhausting, were what kept her going. After breakfast, Emma cleaned the kitchen quickly, dressed the children, and prepared them for daycare while she got ready for her work at the Sinclair mansion. Her routine was rigorous: but she moved with a quiet determination that seemed effortless. Every decision she made, how to stretch her wages, how to manage her time, how to handle her children with patience and love, was a testament to her character. Yet, behind her calm demeanor, a flicker of curiosity and hope lingered. Rumors occasionally floated through the staff about Victoria Sinclair's unusual interest in her, but Emma dismissed them. She had learned early not to rely on chance or wealth. Life had taught her to rely on her wits, her heart, and her resilience. Little did she know, the quiet strength she displayed every day in the small, unnoticed corners of life would soon come under the scrutiny of the Sinclair family, and change the course of her life and the lives of her children, in ways she could never have imagined. That evening, the mansion was bathed in the soft glow of chandelier light, reflecting off polished floors and elegant furniture. Daniel lingered in Victoria's private lounge, a cup of untouched coffee in his hand, his mind still turning over the conversation from that morning. Victoria reclined gracefully in her leather chair, her posture commanding but her expression unusually earnest. "Sit, Daniel," she said, gesturing toward the armchair opposite her. "I want to speak plainly." Daniel obeyed, curiosity and hesitation mingling in his gaze. "I've been thinking about your suggestion, Mother," he admitted cautiously. "But, Emma? She's kind, yes, but she's a maid. I can't help but wonder, do you truly mean this seriously?" Victoria's eyes softened. "I mean every word. Daniel, in our world people are judged for titles, wealth, and appearances. But those things are fragile and fleeting. I have seen Emma handle responsibility, hardship, and children with a grace that many born into wealth could never muster." Daniel leaned forward, running a hand through his hair. "I respect her. Yes, but there's more than class to consider. She has 3 young children. Triplets to be exact. That's a huge responsibility." "Exactly," Victoria said, a spark of approval in her eyes. "And yet she does it without complaint, without fanfare. That is the mark of character, Daniel. It's rare and it cannot be bought. You will learn more from observing her than from any of the privileged circles you frequent." Daniel's brow furrowed. "It feels unconventional. People won't understand and society can be cruel. I'm not sure I'm ready to face that." Victoria smiled faintly, leaning forward, her hands clasped. "Life is rarely easy, Daniel. Love, true love, is even harder. But it is worth the struggle. I'm not asking you to marry for convenience, for appearance, or for approval. I'm asking you to open your heart. Observe her. Learn who she truly is. You will discover qualities that cannot be measured in money, but that define the woman you may one day want to share your life with." Daniel was silent, digesting her words. He admired her wisdom, yet a part of him rebelled at the idea. The maid she spoke of, quiet, diligent, unassuming, did not match the images he had of the kind of woman he thought he should marry. And yet, a small curiosity sparked in him, one that whispered, "Perhaps you've underestimated her. Perhaps she is extraordinary in ways you cannot yet see." Victoria rose, moving to the window and looking out at the sprawling gardens beyond. "I have made my observations, Daniel. I have weighed character, patience, and resilience against wealth, title, and convenience. Emma stands out, and I hope you will see it too. Sometimes the world surprises us in ways we cannot predict." Daniel followed her gaze, the weight of her words settling on him. He realized, slowly but unmistakably, that this was not a whimsical suggestion. It was a challenge, a chance to look beyond expectation, to see the world, and the people in it, through a lens of compassion and understanding. And for the first time that evening, Daniel felt a stirring of curiosity about the maid who had captured his mother's attention. Who was she really? And what could she teach him about life, love, and family that no privilege ever could? The late afternoon sun cast a warm glow across the mansion's garden, where Daniel wandered, trying to process the day's events. Victoria's words echoed in his mind, urging him to see beyond appearances, to observe Emma not as a maid, but as a woman of character. His curiosity had grown into a quiet determination to understand her, to see if she was truly as remarkable as his mother claimed. Emma was there, tending to the flower beds with the same quiet diligence she showed in every corner of the mansion. Her hair was pulled back loosely, a few tendrils falling across her forehead, and her hands were smeared with soil. The sunlight highlighted the softness of her features, but also the resilience in her posture, the effortless grace with which she moved. She looked up as Daniel approached, her expression calm but wary. "Good afternoon, Miss Emma," Daniel began, keeping his tone polite but casual. I wanted to talk with you." Emma straightened slightly, a flicker of surprise crossing her eyes. "Mr. Sinclair," she said, keeping her voice even. Is there something you need? Daniel hesitated, searching for the right words. I've been thinking about what my mother said about you. He paused, noticing the subtle way her eyes widened slightly. I wanted to understand who you really are beyond what I've seen around the mansion. Emma's lips curved in a small, polite smile. I'm just a woman trying to take care of my children and do my work honestly, she said softly. There's nothing remarkable about that. Daniel shook his head. I don't think that's true. Handling 3 children alone, managing your responsibilities and still carrying yourself with composure, that's extraordinary. A flicker of emotion passed across Emma's face, a mix of pride and caution. You don't know the half of it, she admitted, keeping her tone neutral but her eyes revealing depth. Life hasn't been easy. But I do what I must for my children. That's all. Daniel studied her carefully, sensing the honesty in her words, the strength in her demeanor. There was a quiet intelligence in the way she spoke, a warmth beneath her guardedness, and a humility that made her seem even more formidable. He realized that Victoria had been right. This woman carried herself with a dignity and grace he had rarely seen. For a moment, the world outside the garden seemed to fade. The glittering halls of the mansion, the weight of expectations, the whispers of status and society, all of it felt distant. Here in the sunlight with Emma, Daniel felt a rare sense of clarity. Would you let me visit you sometime? He asked cautiously, careful not to overstep. I'd like to understand your life, and your children. I think there's more to you than anyone realizes. Emma regarded him silently for a moment, her guarded expression softening. Perhaps, she said carefully, a hint of curiosity in her voice. But I warn you, my life isn't easy. It's complicated. Daniel smiled faintly, a sense of anticipation building in him. I don't mind complicated, he said quietly. Sometimes the most remarkable things in life are the hardest to see. And for the first time, Emma considered that perhaps someone could truly see her, not as a maid, not as a mother struggling with triplets alone, but as a woman of worth, intelligence, and heart. The moment lingered, a quiet beginning that neither fully understood yet, but one that promised the start of something unexpected and possibly life-changing. The next morning, Daniel found himself walking down a quiet street near the outskirts of the mansion, guided by Emma's careful directions. The modest apartment building she lived in looked unassuming from the outside, a stark contrast to the grandeur of the Sinclair estate. Daniel's curiosity and apprehension mingled. He was about to enter a world completely different from his own, and he wasn't sure what to expect. Emma opened the door to a small but cozy apartment, her children squealing in delight behind her. The air was filled with the mingled scents of breakfast and the faint hint of laundry drying in the sun. Daniel's eyes immediately fell upon 3 little figures racing toward Emma. 2 girls with bright, mischievous eyes and a boy with a shy smile that hid a bubbling curiosity. Mommy, they cried in unison, wrapping their small arms around her. Emma knelt, smoothing the hair of each one, her voice calm and tender. Good morning, my loves. Come say hello. Daniel froze for a moment, taken aback. Triplets. 3 children, vibrant and full of energy, all dependent on this one woman. He felt a surge of admiration and awe at the sight. He had known Emma as a maid, quiet, capable, unassuming, but he had never imagined the depth of responsibility she carried, nor the grace with which she carried it. These are my children, Emma said softly, a note of pride in her voice. It's not easy raising them alone, but I do my best. Daniel knelt down to greet them, and the triplets, after a brief hesitation, accepted him with curious smiles and tentative questions. One of the girls tugged gently at his sleeve. Do you like toys? She asked innocently, holding up a small wooden car. I do, Daniel replied with a laugh, handing it back carefully. I used to love playing with these when I was your age. Emma watched quietly, observing Daniel's patience and genuine warmth. She realized this man, the son of the woman who controlled wealth and power in this city, was engaging with her children not out of obligation, but with curiosity and respect. It was a small, powerful gesture, one that gave her a glimmer of hope that he might see her as more than a maid, more than a mother struggling to survive. As Daniel interacted with the children, Emma prepared breakfast, coordinating tiny cups of milk and toast, guiding their playful chaos with practiced efficiency. He couldn't help but marvel at her composure, how she balanced love, discipline, and patience simultaneously. Finally, Daniel stood, taking a deep breath. Emma, I had no idea. You've been managing all of this, alone. His words faltered under the weight of admiration and respect. You're incredible. Truly incredible. Emma shook her head gently, a faint smile playing on her lips. "It's just life," she said. "I do what I have to. I don't need anyone to call me incredible. But, thank you for saying it." Daniel felt a warmth he had never expected, a sense that this woman's strength, her heart, and her life had opened a door he had never known existed. The revelation of the triplets had shifted something within him. He wasn't just curious about Emma anymore. He was deeply moved, compelled to understand her world, and drawn toward it in a way he could neither deny nor fully comprehend. The Sinclair mansion's main hall gleamed under the afternoon sun, the polished marble reflecting the chandeliers above. Daniel walked ahead, holding the door open with a quiet confidence, as Emma carefully guided her 3 children into the room. The triplets clung to her hands and skirts, their wide eyes scanning the opulent surroundings with awe and cautious curiosity. Victoria Sinclair sat near the grand staircase, elegantly poised in a tailored dress that radiated authority. She looked up as they entered, expecting perhaps one child or none, but her sharp eyes instantly took in 3 small figures trailing behind Emma. Her breath caught slightly, the corners of her lips tightening in surprise. 3? She hadn't anticipated this. "Mother," Daniel began, his voice calm, "I'd like you to meet someone very important," and her children. Emma stepped forward, standing tall despite the weight of apprehension and the children at her sides. "Mrs. Sinclair," she said softly, bowing her head slightly, "these are my children. I hope you'll forgive their curiosity, they've never seen such a place." The triplets, sensing the tension and the elegance surrounding them, hesitated. Then slowly the boy reached out and touched Victoria's hand, while the girls peeked shyly from behind Emma. Victoria's eyes softened slightly at the innocence in their small gestures, but the initial shock lingered. She had always been proud of her meticulous control over appearances and expectations, and yet here were 3 children, unpolished, lively, and completely unpredictable, standing before her. Emma knelt briefly to adjust a curl on one of the girls' heads, her movements calm, precise, and full of quiet authority. "I manage their lives the best I can," she said, her voice carrying a mixture of pride and humility. "It's not easy, but it's my responsibility and I do it with love." Victoria studied her carefully. There was no pretense in Emma's words, no airs, no attempts to impress. Just honesty, resilience, and strength. Slowly the tension in the room began to melt. The triplets, sensing the shift, inched closer, laughing softly as one of the girls offered Victoria a small handmade flower. Victoria's hands trembled slightly as she accepted it, a genuine smile breaking through her initial reserve. Daniel watched closely, a quiet smile tugging at his lips. He saw his mother's surprise soften into admiration, and he felt a swell of pride for Emma. She had done what no one in his world had done before. She had entered a room filled with wealth, expectation, and judgment, and she had held her ground with dignity, grace, and love. Victoria finally rose from her chair, walking slowly toward Emma. "I underestimated you," she admitted, her voice softer than Daniel had ever heard it. "I judged too quickly. You have managed not only your children but yourself with remarkable poise." Emma's eyes widened slightly, but she nodded, accepting the words without arrogance. "Thank you, Mrs. Sinclair. That means a great deal." In that moment, a subtle shift occurred. Victoria's skepticism gave way to respect. Daniel felt it too. The invisible wall between wealth and humility began to crumble. The triplets laughed and played around them, and for the first time, all 3 generations felt the possibility of harmony, connection, and love beyond social status. It was a turning point. A moment that marked the beginning of acceptance, understanding, and the promise that love, unexpected, unpretentious, and resilient, could indeed bridge worlds. Over the next few days, the mansion's atmosphere subtly shifted. Emma, Daniel, and the triplets spent more time together with Victoria, observing from a distance. The matriarch watched quietly, intrigued by how Emma managed her children with patience and warmth. Even when the triplets' playful chaos threatened to disrupt the mansion's polished perfection, Emma handled it effortlessly, diffusing tantrums, solving minor accidents, and always maintaining a calm authority that Victoria found herself respecting more with each passing hour. One afternoon, Victoria found herself in the garden, overseeing the landscaping work. She paused as Emma guided the triplets through a small game, teaching them to water the plants carefully. The girls giggled as water spilled onto their shoes, while the boy tried to mimic their mother's careful movements. Emma knelt repeatedly to correct, encourage, and laugh with them. Victoria's lips curved into an unintentional smile. "She handles everything so gracefully," Victoria whispered to Daniel, who had joined her. "Even with 3 children she seems unshakable." Daniel nodded. I told you she was remarkable, he replied, a note of pride in his voice. It's not just about how she works here. It's her character, Mother. That's what makes her extraordinary. Later that evening, Emma was invited into the mansion's dining hall for tea, a gesture of tentative acceptance. Victoria had prepared a small, informal table setting, removing the usual formality to make Emma feel at ease. Conversation flowed naturally, with Victoria asking about the children, their routines, and Emma's philosophy on parenting. She listened intently, occasionally nodding with a smile, clearly impressed by Emma's honesty and depth. Emma shared stories of balancing work and motherhood, the small triumphs of guiding her children through challenges, and the joy she found in their laughter. Daniel occasionally interjected, asking thoughtful questions, his admiration for her growing with each anecdote. Victoria observed quietly, feeling a shift in her heart. Here was a woman who embodied love, resilience, and dignity, a combination wealth alone could never provide. By the end of the evening, Victoria leaned back in her chair, a soft smile playing on her lips. I must admit, Emma, she said, her tone warm, I underestimated you. You've shown patience, intelligence, and kindness beyond what I expected. And you've done it all without complaint, without pretense. Emma blushed slightly, a mixture of humility and pride. I've only done what I had to for my children, she replied softly. Victoria shook her head. No, it's more than that. You've managed a household, 3 children, and your own life with grace. That is something to be admired. From that moment, the tone in the mansion shifted. Victoria no longer observed Emma as a maid or as someone beneath her social circle. She began treating her with genuine warmth and respect. The children felt it too, laughing freely around Victoria, who started interacting with them playfully, bridging the gap between wealth and humility. Daniel watched all of it quietly, heart swelling with admiration and quiet love. Emma had not only captured his mother's respect but had also begun to capture his heart fully. The barriers of status and expectation had begun to crumble, leaving only the truth that love, patience, and character were the greatest measures of worth. The stage was set. Acceptance had begun, and with it came the promise of something more profound, a union built on mutual respect, understanding, and enduring love. The mansion had been transformed into a scene of understated elegance for the wedding. Flowers adorned every railing, delicate ribbons fluttered in the late afternoon breeze, and the soft murmur of family and staff filled the grand hall. It was a celebration not just of love, but of resilience, acceptance, and the bridging of worlds that had once seemed too far apart. Daniel stood near the altar, adjusting his cufflinks, a quiet mix of excitement and nervousness in his eyes. He glanced toward the grand staircase, waiting for Emma's arrival. When she appeared, radiant in a simple yet elegant dress, holding the hands of her triplets, the entire hall seemed to pause. The children giggled softly, peeking from behind her skirts, their eyes wide with wonder at the grandeur around them. Victoria, seated near the front, felt a surge of emotion. The same woman she had once doubted, the maid she had judged too quickly, now walked toward her son with confidence, grace, and dignity. The triplets' laughter and innocence softened the formality of the ceremony, turning it into a heartfelt gathering of family, love, and newfound harmony. As Emma approached Daniel, he took a deep breath and smiled warmly, kneeling slightly to greet the triplets. Are you ready for this big day? He asked gently. The children nodded eagerly, their tiny hands gripping his, trusting and secure. Emma reached Daniel, and they exchanged a look filled with unspoken understanding. Through trials, judgments, and unexpected challenges, they had found each other. Love had grown not from wealth or expectation, but from respect, shared values, and the ability to see one another clearly, flaws and all. The officiant spoke softly, guiding them through vows that reflected their journey. Daniel's words carried honesty, admiration, and devotion, a promise to love Emma and her children fully, to cherish their strength and resilience, and to honor the life they had built together. Emma's words were equally heartfelt, a declaration of trust, partnership, and unwavering love. Victoria watched quietly, tears of pride and joy welling in her eyes. She felt a profound sense of satisfaction knowing that her son had chosen wisely, and that Emma, the woman she had once doubted, had proven herself not just capable but extraordinary. The triplets giggled as they were handed small bouquets, their laughter ringing through the hall and reminding everyone that family and love were the truest wealth of all. As the ceremony concluded, Daniel and Emma exchanged a gentle, enduring kiss. The hall erupted in applause, a celebration not only of their marriage but of the courage it took to challenge societal norms and embrace love fully. Victoria rose to greet Emma, enveloping her in a warm embrace. "Welcome to the family," she whispered, a promise of acceptance, support, and love. The reception was filled with laughter, music, and shared stories. The triplets played freely, their happiness infectious. Daniel and Emma moved among their guests, hands intertwined, hearts full. In that moment, all doubts, judgments, and societal expectations melted away. What remained was the undeniable truth that love knows no bounds, that it can bridge differences, overcome obstacles, and create a family where respect, understanding, and devotion thrive. The Sinclair mansion, once a place of formal perfection and strict expectations, now pulsed with warmth, joy, and the celebration of a love story that would be remembered for generations. The sun dipped low over the Sinclair mansion, painting the sky in soft hues of gold and pink. The day's celebrations had quieted, leaving only the gentle murmur of family and the occasional laughter of the triplets playing on the terrace. Victoria stood on the balcony, her hands resting lightly on the ornate railing, watching the scene unfold below. The mansion had been filled with opulence and expectation for decades, yet today it had been filled with something far richer: love, acceptance, and the undeniable joy of family. Daniel and Emma sat nearby, the children nestled between them. The triplets' laughter echoed softly as they played with small trinkets and flowers, their carefree joy a testament to the warmth and stability their mother and Daniel had brought into their lives. Emma's eyes met Daniel's and they shared a quiet smile, one that spoke of deep understanding, shared struggles, and a love that had grown steadily, resiliently, and authentically. Victoria reflected on the journey that had brought them here. She had begun with skepticism, her mind trained to judge by wealth, status, and appearances. Yet Emma had defied every expectation. She had shown resilience, patience, intelligence, and an unwavering capacity for love. Victoria realized that her initial doubts had been a mirror of her own limitations, and through observing Emma she had discovered the true measure of character. The triplets, oblivious to the weight of the moment, ran toward Victoria, chattering happily and tugging at her hands. She knelt, embracing them with genuine warmth, feeling the vibrancy and innocence that had helped bridge the divide between her world of privilege and Emma's humble, extraordinary life. "You've brought so much joy into our lives," she whispered, her eyes misty. "Your mother has raised you beautifully." Daniel joined them, placing a hand on his mother's shoulder and another on Emma's back. "Mother," he said gently, "love isn't about wealth or titles. Emma has shown us what it truly means to care, to give, and to build a family. She's proven that character and heart are worth more than gold." Emma's cheeks warmed and she looked at Victoria with gratitude. "Thank you for seeing us," she said softly. "Not just me but my children too. That means everything." Victoria smiled, finally at peace. "Love knows no bounds," she replied. "It transcends class, wealth, and expectation. You have all reminded me that the greatest wealth lies not in what we possess, but in the bonds we nurture and the hearts we cherish." As the evening air settled around them, the Sinclair mansion felt different, lighter, warmer, more alive. Laughter rang out from the terrace, the children's voices blending with the quiet rustle of the trees. Daniel held Emma close, the triplets cuddled between them, and Victoria looked on, proud and content. The night ended not with grandeur or spectacle, but with the simple, enduring truths that had guided this journey. Love, respect, and family are the greatest treasures of all. In that moment, every expectation, every judgment, and every doubt had been replaced by joy, acceptance, and the unshakable bond of a family built on heart, resilience, and unconditional love. And so, the Sinclair mansion became a home, not just of wealth but of warmth, laughter, and the knowledge that true happiness comes from seeing beyond the surface, embracing the unexpected, and letting love guide the way.